Hey everybody, welcome to Cygnus Destroyers Retro Reviews. It's been a while since I've done this show, since November, since my 1-year anniversary video. So this might be the first time that a number of you people came to me from the LJN Defender who has watched a single episode of Cygnus Destroyers Retro Reviews. So welcome to you guys. But for everybody else who's been here before, hi. I haven't forgot about this show. Just because the emphasis has been on LJN Defender recently, Cygnus Destroyers Retro Reviews isn't going anywhere. So if you'd watched the last LJN Defender on the Punisher, you already knew that this was coming, and what this is a multi-game review of the console that I just bought and played for the first time and loved it, the Turbografx-16. Now, a number of you watching this right now might not be very familiar with the Turbografx, but I'm not going to actually focus on a detailed history because that's been done by other people. If you want a detailed history, watch Rue's Turbografx video where he covers Ninja Spirit, or watch Pat's Christmas special that he did that was all Turbografx related. And of course, go to the authority as far as I'm concerned on YouTube. Chris Bucci, Spider-1A. Check out pretty much any video on his channel. They're all good. I mean, the guy's been doing Turbografx, educational videos and reviews for years now, so go to those guys, not me. I'm very new to the console, so I'm not an authority. For now, though, for those who aren't too familiar with the system, I'm going to give you just a very brief rundown, kind of in the style of Pro Jared's 1-minute reviews. So without any further delay, I now present to you Cygnus Destroyer's very brief and not too in-depth history of the Turbografx-16. Let's do this. So the Turbografx originally came out in Japan as the PC Engine in October of 1987 and finally found its way stateside in August of 1989. It was originally meant to be a competitor to the NES. It was the first system that was marketed as 16-bit. Of course, it wasn't truly fully 16-bit as it had a dual 16-bit GPU, but the CPU was still just 8-bit. It did pretty well for like the first few years, but eventually as the Genesis and Super Nintendo gained more prominence, and especially by the time it reached 1994, the system was just about over. So there you go, there's your brief history. Now that that's out of the way, I want to focus on what's much more important, the games. The Turbografx-16 has always been a system that fascinated me, but for one reason or another, I just never played back in the day. I lived in a very small town, and I don't even know if I ever saw it back then. I mean, we had the stores like Babbage's and Electronic Boutique, but for some reason, I just don't remember ever seeing it. Of course, I knew about it because I saw it all the time in GamePro magazine, and that probably played into my fascination, but I never actually had any first-hand experience until just a month ago or so. So I finally picked up the Turbografx complete with the CD attachment on eBay about a month or so ago. I probably picked it up at the worst possible time to do so since prices have been going up pretty consistently over the past couple of years. I mean, not NES levels obviously or Super Nintendo, but they're still getting pretty high. But still, I had to do it. I mean, this is a system I've always wanted to play. And I'm surprised I actually didn't pick it up sooner, but yeah, for some reason I went with the Master System first, as far as those systems that I really wanted to play from my youth that I never did. I now have about 16 Turbografx cue cards and 1 CD, so over the course of this video, I'm actually going to cover every single one of those games. Well, actually, I should say that when I was scripting, and actually even as far as into the voiceover, I totally forgot that I didn't talk about Cosmic Fantasy 2. I haven't really spent that much time with it, to be honest. It seems like a pretty decent RPG, but these days I really don't play RPGs that much. I still love RPGs, but they're such time sinks, and if I'm going to really put a lot of time into something, I'd rather put it into making videos for all you fine people. So, nothing against RPGs, still love them, but it's just that's what I'd rather do with my time. So Cosmic Fantasy 2 seems pretty good. I'll probably put some more time into it eventually. But for now, I've played more of the Hue cards that I have more consistently. So let's talk about all of those right now. Starting with, let's start a little on the obscure side. Why not? So I think without any further delay and ado, let's talk about Crater Maze! One thing I like about Crater Maze right from the get-go is the intro cinematic, which uses a film reel look reminiscent of Dracula's Curse, my favorite Castlevania entry. The story itself is silly beyond belief, and probably the result of an unhealthy dose of substances your mother warned you against. As Mr. Mackey said, drugs are bad, okay? The long and short of it is that our hero and his friends are on a trip which goes bad, in more ways than one, and everyone gets kidnapped. You play as the blue dude from the cutscene, and the goal is to collect all of the treasure, which then brings up the key for the door to exit the level. Attempting to stop the protagonist from completing his mission is a variety of alien creatures, one hit from whom will cause death. Dispatching these nuisances is accomplished with a press of the 2 button. Doing so will dig up holes in the ground. Act as bait and wait for them to get closer and wham! 6 feet under! Pressing it again will grind them to bones and set out a tombstone to mark their passing. Is anyone else getting a strong feeling of deja vu? This seems strangely familiar. Digging holes? Getting treasure? Oh yeah! Boomer's Adventure in Asmic World! While not exactly the same, the core mechanics are very similar. Crater Maze is a less oblique Boomer. It's obvious where the key and the treasure pieces are, so there's much less chance of running the time out waiting for the key to show up. Crater Maze doesn't offer a lot of depth, and I only played it for around 10 minutes, but it was an enjoyable 10 minutes. It's also one of the cheapest titles I bought for the console, so that's a major plus. Puzzle fans on a budget should definitely give Crater Maze a go.
Now, if there's one thing that the Turbografx is known for, is it's for its wealth of shoot-'em-ups. And if you're going to own a Turbografx, you pretty much have to own at least one. I own a few, and of course I'm going to get to all of them. And actually one of them is one of the most landmark titles for the system. But actually, let's begin our space shoot-'em-up journey with...
Sidearms is a horizontal scrolling shoot-'em-up in the vein of Section Z. Fittingly enough, since they both share the same developer, Capcom. Sidearms is all business right from the beginning, proclaiming that the battle for survival has started. One of the coolest things about this shooter happens at the onset of the level. The mech is a transformer! For an 80s kid like me, that's just amazing. I imagine that I'm controlling Starscream or Thundercracker, and that just makes it that much more rad. Similar to the early Capcom arcade hit, the flying mech can shoot in both directions. The 1 button makes the character shoot right, while 2 makes it shoot left. Other than that, Sidearms feels almost identical to most other shoot-'em-ups. The starting weapon is very basic, but multicolored weapon and shield power-ups pop up after defeating enemies over the course of a level. Again, standard of most shooters, 1 hit is fatal, and there's very little post-death invincibility, meaning that 1 death can turn into 2 and become 3 in quick succession, and with very few continues, this becomes one tough shooter. Needless to say, I didn't make it very far in Sidearms, but that doesn't keep it from being a lot of fun. If you're a shoot-'em-up fan and own or are looking to pick up a Turbografx, Sidearms is a must-buy and won't break the bank. Do it for the Transformers. Make Optimus proud.
Now, for those of you who've been with me for a while, you know that one of my favorite genres is the beat-'em-up. And the one that I'm going to talk about now is actually one of the launch titles, and one of the ones that was most prominently featured in the early ads for the Turbografx. It's...
China Warrior! If Kung Fu was injected with a shot of anabolic steroids, the muscle-bound freak that resulted would be China Warrior. The control scheme is ripped right out of the IREM arcade Smash. Up jumps, 1 punches, and 2 kicks. Unlike Kung Fu, however, the sprites in China Warrior are much bigger, and the action is of a much slower pace due to this. Kung Fu blazes forth like a souped-up muscle car,
while China Warrior plods along like a Geo Metro. Don't get me wrong, the sprites look great and really showcase what the Turbografx is capable of, but they also make our hero a much easier target for the swarms of aerial enemies and rocks that assault him along the path to the goal. The main ground level adversaries are robed figures, which must be monks of some kind. Yes, our hero beats up on monks, defenseless monks at that, who don't even lift a finger to fight back. The level boss, on the other hand, can handle himself just fine. He dresses the same as Guile from Street Fighter, but more closely resembles a less flabby Karnov. I think I'd rather pop in bad dudes than this. At least it didn't take itself too seriously. China Warrior isn't horrible, but it's not very good either. Fortunately, I picked it up for only $10, and I've spent far more than $10 on much worse.
Now this next section actually doesn't have anything to do with me. This is actually my first crossover with another YouTube channel, if you want to call it that. This review is from my buddy Jay at Dubious Gaming. When he found out that I was doing a Turbografx video, he asked if I wanted a contribution, and I said, sure. We'd actually already talked about this game previously, so I said, yeah, I would like to learn more about this game, because I don't own this game, so I figured I'd leave it up to him. So, let's turn it over to Jay and his review of the PC Engine version of Super Dodgeball. Take it away, Jay!
Niket's Coco Dodgeball Boo PC Bengai Hen is a PC Engine port from the arcade game Niket's Coco Dodgeball Boo. The game's name directly translates to Niket's High School Dodgeball Club. However, stateside the series is more recognizable as Super Dodgeball for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Niket's Coco Dodgeball Boo PC Bengai Hen was released on the PC Engine in Japan in late March of 1990. This version of the game never saw release outside of Japan. The gameplay itself is very similar to the NES version of the game that arrived stateside. The goal of the game is to defeat the other team by hitting the other team with a dodgeball, eventually reducing their health to zero, which will kill them. You're able to perform special attacks which do more damage by dashing and throwing the ball right before crossing the line in the middle. If you cross the line, however, you'll drop the ball and the other team will have the chance to pick it up. The game differs from the NES version in that there are two different types of players. There are name players and chibi players. The name characters are giant and do way more damage when hitting someone on the other team. They also each have their own individual stats as well as their own special attack. The game also differs from the NES version by requiring much more precise timing in order to catch a ball coming at you or to perform your special attack. This drastically raises the difficulty of the game versus the NES version. The AI is also more difficult in this game to the point of being almost unfair with the African and USA teams, with way more big name characters than any of the other teams. The USA team consists of only big named characters and is incredibly difficult to defeat. Niket's Coco Dodgeball Boo PC Bengai Hen has 3 modes: the standard World Cup, a one-on-one versus mode for 2 players, as well as a mode called Quest Mode. For the World Cup, you travel around the world defeating the world's dodgeball teams. Each team and level has its own nuances. For instance, the African level is hard to sprint, or the Chinese team has a really low defense. Quest Mode is completely unique to this version of the game and has the head of the Japanese dodgeball team, Kurino, attempting to find some aliens that bopped him in the head with a dodgeball. This mode has you traveling around the world playing other teams looking for aliens. Occasionally, a member of the opposing team will be an alien in disguise and when defeated will reveal their true identity. When defeating one of the other teams in this mode, you'll be able to recruit the other team's captain, replacing one of the chibi members of your team. After finding the alien on each team of the 6 countries, you'll be brought to a final battle with the aliens. Graphically, the game looks pretty much identical to the arcade version, which has much richer color palette than the NES version. The addition of different sized player sprites added quite a bit graphically. The game drastically reduces sprite flicker seen in other versions, which is really nice. However, sometimes when the ball's moving really fast, it will flicker and sometimes become impossible to dodge. The audio in this game and the NES versions are identical, and it's really cool to hear the game played through a PC Engine sound chip. There's a certain grainy tinniness to the system that just sounds so different and exotic from Nintendo and Sega sound chips. While the game is somewhat obscure stateside, the price is still fairly low on it, with a price tag of around $20. Overall, Niket's Coco Dodgeball Boo PC Bengai Hen is a far more faithful port to the arcade game than the NES version, with nearly identical gameplay and graphics to the arcade version. Just like the NES and arcade versions of this game, it's a blast and would make a perfect addition to any Turbografx-16 or PC Engine collection.
Thanks for the review, Jay.
Looks pretty cool, doesn't it, everybody? I think I might have to pick myself up a card converter so I can get that for myself. Anyway, Jay has his own YouTube channel, like I said. It's called Dubious Gaming. He's a great reviewer. I've watched a number of his reviews, and I'm going to keep on watching and watch some of his older ones. He's actually been doing it for about a year now, over a year now. He just put out a 1-year anniversary video where he covers every Konami TMNT game, every Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. It's a really good video. You should definitely watch it. In fact, I'm going to put the box right there. So click on that. You can find his video. You should definitely watch all of it. Really good video. And actually, I'll pop up a little annotation for Jay's channel. So click that. You can go right there. Click a little icon there. I'm not sure which one I'm going to put. This is Dubious Gaming one or maybe his Twitter one. But anyway, maybe I'll put them both. I don't know. So just click one of those icons to go to his channel. And definitely click the TMNT video because it's really badass. So thanks again, Jay. So now let's move back to my covered sections. Covered sections? Yeah, so let's get back to my reviews. So here's me again with another beat 'em up. It's one that should look awfully familiar to you guys, I would think. So here it is. This should be familiar to longtime viewers of my channel, as I've already reviewed the Master System port of Vigilante. The IREM Arcade Turbografx port is more amped up than the previously covered Sega systems, with the names reverted back to the original cabinet. Maria becomes Madonna and the rogues return to the skinheads. The action is pretty much the same, but a little faster paced. The controls are the reverse of the Master System release, with kicks being assigned to the 1 button and punches to the 2, but up is again used for jumps. The moves are much easier to control on the Turbografx, with jump kicks and punches being extremely simple to execute in comparison to the Master System's perform it at random style. The big improvement of the Turbografx over the Master System is in the soundtrack. Let's have a close listen. Here's the first level theme from the Master System. Now here's the Turbografx. No comparison. The Turbografx is the clear winner. Gotta dig that growly bass. So metal! On the other end of the spectrum, the Master System wins for being more balanced overall. As you'll recall from my earlier review, Vigilante on the Master System, while still tough, has unlimited continues. The Turbografx port has limited continues and seems harder in general, so I was only able to get to the second level before getting a game over. My opinion of this early IREM beat 'em up hasn't changed since my previous review. Vigilante is an average brawler, and while it doesn't live up to the standards of its predecessor Kung Fu, I'd still recommend it to fans of the genre. As far as which port is better, in spite of the pumping adrenaline rushing soundtrack, my preference has to go with the Master System version. As far as I know, the Turbografx doesn't have this. I rest my case. Now this next game, none of you are prepared for this game, so let's just get to it, no intro. Just try to brace yourselves, everybody. JJ and Jeff. Where do I even begin with this oddity? JJ and Jeff is a side-scrolling platformer, but in the loosest possible definition of the genre. The title characters are detectives, and the plot involves a case of a very rich man who has been kidnapped. Playing as either character doesn't have any impact on the story, and the roles reverse depending on which is chosen. The selected character accepts the case, and the NPC thinks that they are being left out of the fun. One exits, followed shortly after by the other, and thus begins JJ and Jeff. As a side-scrolling platformer, the feel is very loose and slippery. This is one of those momentum-driven titles, but done in the wrong way. The detectives move way too fast, making it easy to run into enemies and obstacles, complicated even further by the additional time it takes for JJ or Jeff to cease movement. To defend themselves against the aforementioned enemies, The hapless half-wits have 3 methods of attack. The traditional Super Mario style head jump, some kind of spray can, and a good old-fashioned kick. I found the spray can to be mostly worthless, so I stuck with a combination of the jump and kick. It's especially satisfying kicking the troublemaking partner right in the keister. The kick is also vital in accessing the multitude of secrets which are littered around each stage, from beneficial cherries and other food items whose purpose is to replenish the vitality bar, obviously borrowed from Adventure Island, to harmful pieces of poo that somehow find their way inside stone pillars. The same poo that is dropped from the enemy birds, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde style. Don't question it. For the sake of your brain, just put it down to video games. Another positive secret lies in the bathroom doorways and other hidden areas where helpful hints and health refills are doled out, most of the time from the NPC partner. Entering the ground level doorway in level 1-2 apparently leads to a passage up to heaven where we find our partner with angel wings and a halo. Apparently those kicks from the previous stage were so hard that they completely tore up his internal organs. The moral of the story is to not take after JJ or Jeff. Never look for fun and adventure. It will always end up with a boot to the ass, a one-way ticket to heaven, and a permanent position promoting the local casino. Ain't life grand? If you thought that was strange, wait until you get a load of this! I have no words. I cannot even begin to describe what is going on here. I think this is equivalent to the tape from The Ring, and just viewing this may kill us all in about a week. So be on the lookout for Lilo. That girl's bad news. As far as platformers go, JJ and Jeff scrapes by at an acceptable level, but in terms of wacky head scratchers that make you say WTF more times than Kiss has had farewell tours, the game is worth many times its weight in gold.